A note from the narrator. This is not my story. It is my mother's. At the same time, it is the story that shaped me. It is the testimony I share most often when I spread the gospel, not only because it is the one I relate to most, but because it so powerfully demonstrates how greatly God works within and through a single life. For much of this narrative, I rely on my mother's own accounts. However, I have also walked alongside her through many chapters of this journey. Through those shared experiences, I have become certain that God guided and protected her, not just in the moments I witnessed with my own eyes, but throughout her entire life, even when I wasn't there to see it. In fact, I often feel that I receive undeserved grace and blessings simply by being near her. It is now my wish, as well as my mother's, that this story offers hope and faith to those going through the same stages of life she once endured. While I have filled in certain details to better convey what she must have felt at the time, I solemnly swear that every event in this book truly happened to the best of my knowledge. My only goal is to deliver this account as accurately as possible so that you may see what God has done in her life and just how great and good He is. May God bless you all, even when that blessing does not come in the form we expect or at the time we desire. It is still a blessing. Often, we are simply the ones who understand it much later. Intro. What is life? It was just another autumn day of my first year in high school. The sky was clear and the air was cool, though I could not really feel it since I was in a crowded bus, cramped just as always. Only my school uniform for spring autumn seasons, covering my arms, was telling me the autumn was at its peak. Soon, the freezing Siberian air mass would sweep down from the north, locking the country in ice once again, and with it, my right leg. Winter was coming, the season I loved most, yet hated with equal passion. It doesn't mean the autumn is particularly any better, really, especially when it rains. I scolded as the school was getting closer. The road, the only road that led to the front gate of my high school, was an unpaved one. It had no problem when the weather was good. It, however, became a hell to me when it rained. The entire road became one big mud pit. My feet sunk almost up to my knees every step I took. The problem was my right leg. It lacked the strength to pull a rain boot back out of that thick, heavy mud. Every time I tried to lift my foot, the boot stayed behind, buried. I would have no choice but to reach down with my hands, pull the boot out, toss it forward to where my next step would be, and begin again. Left foot, right boot. Again and again. That was my reality for 100 meters of mud, all while balancing a heavy school bag and two lunch boxes. Why two? One for lunch and one for dinner, since we had to stay in the school studying until at least 5 p.m., just like any other high school in South Korea at the time. There was another road which was paved that led to the back door, but the school didn't allow us to use it, saying it was not safe. Every day was a burden to me, struggling to carry on. Every rainy day was nothing less than a curse. I cursed myself, my parents, who bore a large responsibility for my disability, the school that chose to be in such a location, and everything else, including God, whose existence I seriously doubted for sending such weather. Why is my life like this? The question I had asked more than thousands of times raised its head again inside of my heart, and tortured me again. Was it something of my fault? No way. I was only a year old when I became like this. I didn't know anything, not to mention there was nothing I could do to stop or prevent this fate of mine. How could it be my fault when there was absolutely nothing I could do? Then whose fault was it? My parents? They were ignorant, all right, since they did not even understand the meaning of polio when they first heard the word from my doctor. But they certainly did not want it. Regardless of my contempt and hatred towards them, I knew that much. Then whose? God? Well, I didn't even believe in that being. Not that much, at least. There was only one possible answer as far as I could see. It was life itself. The only plausible explanation was that life itself was like that. It was unfair, moody, and even cruel to certain people in its nature. People like me. That led to another question that I had tried to find an answer for years. What is life, then? By what standard does it choose its victims? I have tried to find an answer for that question ever since I was in middle school. In elementary school, I thought studying hard would provide the answer. But I soon realized that academic achievement couldn't explain my pain. So I turned to philosophy. From the start of middle school, I devoured every book I could find. While my friends ignored the philosophy sets their parents bought for them, I read them all with a desperate hunger. Descartes, Kant, Pascal, Hegel, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer. I dedicated 3 years of my life to their words. Yet none of them was able to give me a satisfactory answer. Most of them were just a bunch of puzzle like words, starting with a question and ending with another question without answering the first one. Some had beautiful prose, but none defined what life truly was. The only conclusion I could reach was that I had to find my own answer. I kept thinking and thinking. As the bus jolted along the rough road, my body rocked with the rhythm of the engine. I stared vacantly out the window. What is life? How does it choose who lives which life? Suddenly, the answer was shown. There was no standard. It just picked people at random. To those cast in the lead roles, it was endlessly kind and generous. To those cast as unnamed extras, life is indifferent. It doesn't shed a tear for the suffering of a minor character, because that suffering is simply what is written in the script. And I, unfortunately, had been cast as the extra. Yes, this is my role, I concluded. In this big play called life, this is the role that I am given, unseen, crippled, and cast aside. Not because I've done something wrong, just because this is the script I was given. Life is a play, nothing more. Once the conclusion was set, everything became clear. There was nothing I could do. Everything was already written in the script even before I was born. No matter how hard I tried and struggled to change something in my life, it would never happen, just like it never happened before. Therefore, there was no need to try to do anything. There was no meaning in anything whatsoever. Studying? What for? No matter how hard I studied and got as many awards as I could, the world never saw me as anything more than a cripple. Working hard? For what? Would it be any different from studying hard? Besides, would they give me any work that could do? When they didn't give me any chance to do anything in outdoor activity classes? Marriage. Who would want a cripple as his wife, unless he himself has a serious issue? Even my own family, my own mother, called me a shame, blaming me, saying that I brought all the bad luck into the house in front of all the relatives at every family gathering. No, This was my role. Thus, I would live like this, faithful to what I was given, doing nothing, trying nothing. I would simply drift wherever this damn life took me. Then, one day, when it finally hits a dead end, that would be the day I could finally end this sick life of mine.